Kelsey Grammer's Star Trek TNG cameo was because of Captain Kirk. Kelsey Grammer's guest appearance on Star Trek The Next Generation was because of Captain James T. Kirk, William Shatner, and Jonathan Frakes. Grammer is beloved as Dr. Frasier Crane, a character he portrayed on Cheers from 1984 to 1993, Frasier from 1993 to 2004, and the Frasier revival on Paramount+, which began in 2023 and enters its second season. However, Kelsey Grammer also made a memorable cameo in Star Trek The Next Generation Season 5's Cause and Effect. At the conclusion of Star Trek The Next Generation Season 5, Episode 18, Cause and Effect, Kelsey Grammer appears as Captain Morgan Battison, the commander of the USS Bozeman. Cause and Effect centers on a causality loop in the Typhon expanse that trapped the USS Enterprise D in the 24th century. The Enterprise, commanded by Captain Jean-Luc Picard, Patrick Stewart, continually collides with the USS Bozeman, a 23rd century starship also caught in the time loop. After the Enterprise crew devised a way to free their ship, Captain Battison contacted Captain Picard, revealing Kelsey Grammer in a Starfleet captain's uniform. Jonathan Frakes and Captain Kirk to convince Kelsey Grammer to guest star on TNG. In an interview with Cinema Blend about Frasier Season 2, Kelsey Grammer was asked about his guest appearance on Star Trek The Next Generation, which took place while Kelsey was still playing Dr. Frasier Crane on Cheers. Grammer revealed that it was Jonathan Frakes, the director of TNG's Cause and Effect episode, who invited him to guest star. Grammer was uncertain until Frakes hooked him that his character, Captain Battison, was a contemporary of Captain Kirk. Grammer explains, in the Star Trek timeline, Captain Morgan Battison and the USS Bozeman were caught in the Typhon Expanse's time causality loop in 2278. This is after the events of Star Trek, the motion picture, as Starfleet had transitioned to its famed monster maroon uniforms, and 7 years before the events of Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. Therefore, it makes perfect sense that Captain Battison would have known Captain Kirk. In Kelsey Grammer's Captain return to Star Trek, according to Kelsey Grammer, he's unaware of any interest from Star Trek in reprising his role as Captain Morgan Battison. Grammer told Cinema Blend, "Not that I know of. He's a very sought-after character at those conventions these days. I actually did end up doing one, and I've signed some autographs as Captain Morgan Battison." Part of the renewed interest in Battison is because Morgan made another cameo appearance in Star Trek Lower Decks Season 3's premiere. Although Kelsey Grammer didn't return to voice the role, Captain Battison was seen as part of a Starfleet security team who exonerated Star Trek Lower Decks Captain Carol Freeman, Don Lewis, from the charge of blowing up the Pacul planet. If Kelsey Grammer were to return as Captain Battison, the most likely of the upcoming Star Trek shows would be Star Trek Starfleet Academy, barring another surprise appearance in Star Trek Lower Decks Season 5. But fans have Jonathan Frakes and Captain Kirk to thank for Kelsey Grammer's Star Trek The Next Generation cameo. Kelsey Grammer's cameo in Star Trek The Next Generation, TNG, is an unexpected but delightful treat for fans of both the science fiction series. The actor Grammer, best known for his role as Dr. Frasier Crane on Cheers and Frasier, appeared in the episode Cause and Effect, where he portrayed Captain Morgan Battison. While Grammer's cameo is a memorable moment in the Star Trek franchise, few know that it was indirectly tied to one of the most iconic characters in science fiction history, Captain James T. Kirk. To understand how Captain Kirk played a role in Kelsey Grammer's cameo, we need to look back at the deep roots of Star Trek and its evolution over the decades. By the time Star Trek The Next Generation began airing in 1987, the original series, TOS, starring William Shatner as Captain Kirk, had already cemented itself as a cultural phenomenon. Kirk, along with Spock, Bones, and the rest of the Enterprise crew, became iconic symbols of the franchise, and TOS established the foundations on which later Star Trek series would build. When TNG debuted, it boldly ventured into new territory, with Captain Jean-Luc Picard, Patrick Stewart, leading the Next Generation Enterprise. However, the show was still closely linked to the legacy of Kirk and his crew. The TNG writers often found themselves balancing the desire to create something new and innovative while paying homage to the original characters that had captured the hearts of millions of fans. This interplay between legacy and innovation is one of the keys to understanding why Grammer's cameo came to be and why Captain Kirk played such a significant role behind the scenes. The story behind Grammer's cameo begins with the Star Trek movies that came out in the 1980s and early 1990s, which brought back Captain Kirk and his original crew. One of the most pivotal films in this era was Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan, 1982, widely regarded as one of the best science fiction films of all time. In this film, Captain Kirk faces off against his old nemesis, Khan Noonien Singh, in a tense and tragic battle that culminates in the destruction of the USS Reliant and the heroic death of Spock. Later reversed, of course, in Star Trek III. The Wrath of Khan not only reignited interest in the Star Trek films, but also reinvigorated Captain Kirk's status as a legendary figure in the franchise. However, one lesser-known fact is that Kelsey Grammer's appearance as Captain Baddison in TNG was a direct result of this renewed Kirk-inspired momentum. Grammer himself was a longtime fan of Star Trek, and like many actors of his generation, was particularly drawn to the charisma and leadership style of Captain Kirk. In interviews, Grammer has expressed how much he admired William Shatner's portrayal of the character, saying that he found Kirk to be an iconic figure of authority and exploration. Grammer's love for Star Trek, especially the Kirk-led adventures, led him to seek out an opportunity to be part of the franchise. When the opportunity for a guest appearance on TNG came up, Grammer was eager to jump aboard. The producers, knowing his enthusiasm for the series and his love for the original Star Trek, were more than happy to accommodate him. In cause and effect, Grammer's role as Captain Baddison serves as a nod to the captains of the past, including Kirk. In fact, Captain Bateson's ship, the USS Bozeman, is an old Federation starship that gets trapped in a time loop, only to emerge 90 years later, completely unaware that so much time has passed. Baddison, much like Kirk, embodies the classic, decisive starship captain archetype, bold, confident, and always ready to command his ship into action. This character dynamic strongly echoes Captain Kirk's own leadership style, which was defined by his willingness to take risks and his instinctual approach to problem-solving. Additionally, the USS Bozeman's anachronistic presence in TNG creates a subtle link between the era of Kirk and the next-generation crew. Just as Captain Kirk had once been the face of exploration and adventure for an entire generation, now Captain Baddison, coming from a long-forgotten era, symbolized that past tradition suddenly intruding upon the future. It's worth noting that Grammer's cameo is brief, but it left a lasting impression on fans and even fueled speculation about the possibility of more appearances by Baddison. Some fans have speculated that Baddison could have become a recurring character or even starred in his own Star Trek spin-off, though this never came to fruition. However, the fact that the cameo occurred at all highlights how much of Star Trek's enduring legacy can be traced back to the iconic figure of Captain Kirk. Kelsey Grammer's appearance was not just a fun Easter egg for fans, but a reminder of how the shadow of Kirk still loomed large over the Star Trek universe. In the end, Kelsey Grammer's cameo in TNG was more than a mere guest appearance. It was a reflection of the timeless appeal of the Star Trek franchise and a subtle tribute to Captain Kirk's enduring influence. Grammer's love for the original series and its fearless captain made his role as Captain Baddison a fitting, if brief, homage to the legacy of James T. Kirk. Through this cameo, Star Trek continued to honor its past while boldly charting its future, much like the captains who steer their ships into the unknown. Star Trek continued to honor its past while boldly charting its future, much like the captains who steer their ships into the unknown.